What's up, butt nuggets? So today we're talking about the differences in training and diet between naturals and those who are enhanced, aka the saucy bros. Before we get into things, I have never used performance-enhancing drugs, and therefore there is the very obvious criticism of, well, how can you talk about this topic if you've never actually used them yourself? Well, I'll have you know that I have a semi-functioning brain, and I can use that brain to do things like read and make observations. It's also worth noting that many who take PEDs and thus have been enhanced and natural, they downplay the efficacy of performance-enhancing drugs. Now, not everyone, but some people lie about it outright, and those who don't really often downplay how much of an impact they have. So even though I'm not 100% qualified to make this video, I don't care. I'm making this video anyway.
Quick addition, and I know there's going to be some naturals who are like, well, why do I have to know the difference about training naturally versus enhanced? In fact, if you're natural, it's more important that you know the difference. If you're enhanced, you're probably advanced, or at least more advanced, plus pretty much everything is going to work fairly effectively. But if you're natural, it's very easy to get caught up in an enhanced style of training that just isn't going to work very well. And I personally wasted a ton of time training like an enhanced athlete. Plot twist, it didn't work very well. So yeah, it's very important to know the difference.
Number one, and most obviously, is the progress that you can make in terms of building muscle. Steroids work. Anyone who says that they are icing on the cake is just lying. Okay, there's usually about 100-pound difference in between the biggest, most shredded physiques and those who are actually truly lifetime natural. They make a tremendous difference. And therefore, your expectations, if you're natural or if you're enhanced, should be wildly different. Past the first few years of training as a natural, you're going to be fighting for 2 to 3 to 4 pounds of muscle per year. And then after 8 or 9 years of training, it's going to go down to like 1 or 2 pounds per year. It's just the reality of the situation. Number two, volume. It's important to realize that steroids change your body at a molecular level, at a cellular level, at a very fundamental level. Okay, they allow you to just gain muscle at a greatly accelerated rate. They allow you to train more, to train harder, to recover faster, and to make gains a lot faster. This is not an advertisement for steroids. It's just important to realize that they do work. There's a hormone called cortisol, which is going to be responsible for catabolic activity in the body, so breaking muscle tissue down. When you take performance-enhancing drugs, it actually blocks the effects of cortisol at a molecular cellular level, and therefore you can get away with more training volume. Number three, if you're natural, you have to stimulate muscle growth during the workout. Okay, and it's going to be elevated for 24, 36, maybe 48 hours after the workout. If you're enhanced, it's elevated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So what you do during the workout suddenly is a lot less important. And this means that frequency is going to be more important for a natural. You see a lot of enhanced athletes on a pro split. Again, this is because all week long, for all of their muscles, they're in a growth phase. Whereas for a natural, you only have this 24 to 36, maybe 48-hour window where you are actually growing after you target a specific muscle group. Therefore, frequency, I would say at least twice per week per muscle group, is usually a good idea. Number five, effort, failure, RPE. Again, if you're not going at least somewhat close to failure, if you're not getting tough, challenging reps as a natural, you will not be stimulating muscle growth. Doesn't matter how much volume you do, if they're all very far away from failure, your gains will not be robust. Whereas if you're enhanced, you don't need to go close to failure because you've already triggered muscle protein synthesis. It's triggered all the time. And therefore, you do see a lot of enhanced athletes train quite far away from failure. They do a set and the bar doesn't slow at all. And, they still grow. They still grow really well. So if you're natural, you might not be able to train with as much volume, but the sets that you do, you need to make them count. You need to be pushing them hard and actually using those sets to trigger muscle growth. Number 6, the pump. If you're a natural, the pump does almost nothing for you. If you're enhanced, that pump is going to stretch the fascia, enabling further muscle growth until you look like a Belgian blue. It's going to be shuttling all that nutrient and PED-rich blood into the muscles, and it's really going to be a main focus. If you want to get maximally huge as an enhanced athlete, the pump is a very, very good proxy of having a good workout. If you're a natural, it is pretty close to meaningless. It can have some positive effects. I did a video up there, but it's not really going to be a main focus. So when chasing the pump, I'll just read from my list. Often enhanced lifters will do partial range of motion, short recoveries like 15-30 seconds, use a mind-muscle connection in order to trap that blood in the muscle, go for those hard contractions again to get more activation and a better pump. They will choose often more isolations, usually not exclusively isolations, but it'll be more predominant in the program. They'll use more machines in order, again, to get a better pump. They'll use bro splits because if you're doing full body, you can't really get much of a pump because you can't get a pump everywhere. So they use bro splits to target a specific area to maximally inflate and pump that area. And they'll often use higher reps. So if you go to a website like simplyshredded.com, the average rep range is like 15, maybe even higher. You'll see a lot of programs. It's a bro split. They're doing 6 exercises for 4 or 5 sets each, all for one area. And it'll be just pump, pump, pump to the max. If you try that as a natural, your results will be lackluster. I promise you that.
And these are all real training plans that I've seen online, and nowhere on this fucking website does it say anything about steroids. I read, dozens and dozens of their articles from people who clearly are on PEDs, like shitloads of PEDs, and not a word about aforementioned PEDs. Just these bullshit training plans, these cookie cutter, shitty diets, and this is the kind of content that beginners stumble across on the internet. And it's sad, and it pisses me off too.
Number 7, your risk of injury. Steroids help you gain muscle. Muscle contributes to strength. However, steroids do not help your tendons to grow. And in fact, some of them actually actively weaken your tendons. If you go on YouTube and you search like gym fucking catastrophic injuries, I would say there is a massively disproportionate number of those guys, and sometimes gals, but mostly guys, who are on PEDs. Okay, they help you get so strong so quickly that stuff just starts to snap. A lot of substances also help you to activate the central nervous system more fully and more strongly, increasing your neural drive and having a huge impact on strength. Some compounds are more for size, others are more for strength. If you use a shitload of stuff, you're gonna get way strong way too quickly, and that's when stuff starts to pop. And this contributes to them doing this pump style of training, which is a lot less risky. Stay away from failure, use light weights, hard contractions, and let the drugs do the work. But again, if you're natural, that's going to get you nowhere. If you're natural, things tend to grow at the same rate. So your muscles and your strength, your ligaments, your tendons, your bones, all your connective tissue, they grow slowly. Okay, if you put on 4 pounds of muscle in a year, you're not going to be getting massively stronger. Okay, so your risk of injury is going to be a lot lower. Number 9, when you take performance-enhancing drugs, you will usually take them cyclically, okay, from what I've seen. So you blast, and then you cruise, you blast, and then you cruise. And so you're going to have this cyclical type of training where your volume and your intensity and everything else is going to be changing based on where you are in that blasting and cruising phase. You want to make the most out of your blast, and therefore people do fucking insane amounts of volume when they're blasting, and then they cut back when they're cruising, and it's just something that if you're natural, you don't have to worry about, okay? You can still have a slightly phasic approach in terms of your volume and exercise selection and everything else as a natural, but it is much less pronounced. And with PEDs, especially with the water retention and with the quick gains and muscle memory and everything, you can get some crazy shit happening. Like, you don't see someone for a month, and then you see them and they're just like 20 pounds heavier, just like, what? And then, another month or two goes by, and then now they're fucking small. If you're natural, progress is so slow, but it's also steady. And therefore, you're not going to have these wild swings in body weight. Number 10, you have a lot more flexibility in your programming when you are enhanced. So I talked about volume, I talked about, all these other factors, but the truth is, there are some people doing low volume and enhanced. Dorian Yates, he did basically 1 set to failure per exercise. And it worked. It clearly worked. And so the truth is, if you're enhanced, you can get results on high or low volume. But if you're natural, your window in terms of the variables that you're manipulating, it's a lot smaller. Okay, and you need to be a lot more mindful with how you set things up. It's just the reality of it. Getting into diet/lifestyle. Number 11, protein intake. Now, if you're natural, I don't really see a reason to go above 1 gram per pound of body weight. Even that is probably a little bit on the high side because you're just not going to use it. Okay, it's going to be just converted to glucose and used for energy. But if you're on PEDs, again, it changes things at a cellular molecular level, and therefore you're going to be able to use a lot more protein. And enhanced lifters, they tend to eat more often per day. So you see 6, 7, 8 meals per day. As a natural, not needed. Okay, 3 to 4 meals a day, completely fine. Maybe throw in a shake and you're good to go. But for an enhanced athlete, a missed protein feeding really is a missed opportunity to grow. Number 12, sleep. Now, steroids don't exactly make it so you never have to sleep. Sleep is still important even if you're enhanced. It does have an impact on performance and body composition and everything. But if you're natural, it's really important. Okay, when Arnold said, sleep faster. Well, if you're enhanced, okay, you get up early, you had 4 or 5 hours of sleep. That's not impacting your testosterone levels. And if it impacts your cortisol levels, well, again, who gives a shit, because a lot of that is being blocked. But if you're natural, waking up early and getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep to go and do cardio, no, okay? No. And if you're natural, sleeping is the bedrock upon which your entire training, heck, your entire life is built upon. And don't do anything to impact your sleep if you can get away with it. Occasionally getting late is okay. But not too often, okay? You gotta want it. Live the dream. Number 13, carbohydrate intake. Now, I've heard of professional bodybuilders on 1,000 grams of carbs a day, 1,200 grams of carbs a day, which is what a lot of people are on per week or more. And especially if they're taking insulin, carb intake is probably going to be very high. For a very simple reason. If you take insulin and you don't take carbs, well, you could die. And insulin usage is very, very common at the highest levels, and it's probably the single most dangerous compound that you can use. Steroids, yeah, they might eventually kill you, but they won't kill you right away. Insulin absolutely can, so be careful. Also, it's worth noting that enhanced is a range. So you have professional bodybuilders who take a bunch of different stuff in huge amounts, but then you have the local gym rat who takes testosterone and Anavar, or just a little bit of stuff. Okay, so this is all painting with a pretty broad brush, and it is somewhat individual based on what you're taking and then also your individual situation. Number 14, fat intake. This one might be a little bit of a controversial one, but just observationally, you do get professional enhanced lifters where there's almost no fat in their diet because they don't really need to worry about their hormonal health because they're injecting all the testosterone in their body and they're not producing any anyway. But if you're natural, I would say you have to be a little bit more mindful about your fat intake and perhaps about micronutrients as well, because you have to produce everything in your body. Chicken breast, rice, and broccoli. It's a meme for a reason. Number 15, digestion. I've seen numerous professional bodybuilders talk about how they enhanced their results or their gains from focusing on digestion, whether it's prebiotics or probiotics or some other product. Maybe in this case, okay, if you're consuming 6, 7, 8,000 calories per day, digestion and absorption might actually be the limiting factor. But if you're natural, much less likely. And so if you're natural, unless you have a problem with digestion or some kind of disease or condition or something like that, probably not worth focusing on. Number 16, health, blood work, and supplementation. Now let's tackle the first one, health. If you're an enhanced lifter, you are putting your health at risk. You just are, okay? There's no safe steroids, okay? Even SARMs are not safe by any means. And especially if you push things very, very far, it can be extremely unhealthy. And some people, sadly, do pay the ultimate price. If you're natural, this is not really something that you have to worry about. Okay, even if you're participating in natural shows, I wouldn't say it's particularly healthy, but I also wouldn't say it's super unhealthy either. And if you just want to, be mid-teens or low teens in body fat percentage, that's ideal. Bodybuilding can actually help enhance your life. So if you're enhanced, you're going to want to get blood work on a very regular basis. If you're natural, like you can, but it's much, much less needed. Finally, supplementation. I hear a lot of professional bodybuilders, they're on a whole bunch of supplements for liver support, for kidney support, for cognitive function, for to keep them dry, to keep them full, to keep them pumped, like a bunch of different pump products. If you're natural, probably not really worth focusing on. And if you're, following some professional bodybuilder and you're just like, oh, I better use 18 supplements, you've been marketed to very effectively. Number 17, body fat percentage. So naturals can get shredded. They can get just as lean as enhanced lifters. They won't be nearly as big and they'll probably lose muscle when doing it, but they can absolutely get lean. But they probably can't sustain and maintain as lean of a physique. Okay, if you're natural, trying to maintain under 10% body fat, probably a pipe dream. Again, testosterone is going to be lower, cortisol is going to be higher, sleep quality is going to be lower, quality of life is going to be lower, your strength is going to be way down. There are a bunch of reasons, I'll probably do a whole video on it, but trying to maintain too lean of a physique, not good. But if you're enhanced, a lot of those issues get taken care of. Now, if you're enhanced, you probably don't want to go up too high in body fat percentage. If you look at professional bodybuilders, they used to go up pretty high in the off season, but now they maintain a fairly lean physique. And this is probably primarily due to insulin sensitivity. Number 18, PP ratio. No. P ratio. Okay, so this is partitioning ratio. This is when you make gains, what percentage of those gains are muscle and what percentage is fat. If you're enhanced, surprise, surprise, a larger percentage of these gains is going to be muscle. In fact, some professional bodybuilders, like Kevin Levrone, they would grow into a show. So they would gain weight while losing fat because they were gaining so much muscle at the same time. Because of genetics, but then also primarily because of the performance-enhancing drugs. If you're natural, that is never, ever going to happen. No one gains muscle at a very fast rate while getting leaner when natural. It just doesn't happen. Same thing with going in the opposite direction. Okay, if you're natural and you're dieting, you're doing well to maintain all your muscle. But if you're enhanced, you can get much bigger while losing a ton of fat. Okay, so it is just very effective at partitioning calories. And they also shrink your balls, so I guess it does increase your PP ratio. Number 19, surplus/deficit. Again, primarily due to the P ratio. So usually enhanced lifters, when they go into a bulk, they go into a very, very significant surplus, and a higher percentage of that gain is muscle. And then when they diet, they go into a massive surplus, and they keep all their muscle, if not gaining muscle. I've heard of enhanced lifters in a 2,000 or 3,000 calorie deficit. If you're natural, you're just going to absolutely hemorrhage muscle. But again, different games. So if you're enhanced, you can have a bigger surplus as well as a bigger deficit. You gain more muscle, and then you keep it all even with this huge deficit. If you're natural, small surplus, slow gains, go very, very conservatively, and then when you're cutting, you can go faster than when you're gaining, but you still can't get carried away because you're much more at risk for muscle loss. Again, partially because of cortisol. That's not blocked, and therefore you absolutely can lose muscle. But if you're enhanced, the risk of muscle loss is much lower. I think this is part of the reason I follow some enhanced lifters on Instagram. I won't name names. It seems like every few weeks, everything is just switched up. Okay, so like, oh, they're bulking, and then they're cutting, and then they're mini cutting, and then they're bulking, and then they're mini bulking and mini cutting. It's just, they're all over the place, and they're getting fantastic results. And they're seeing huge, huge changes. Like, they were bulking, and then a week later, they have a vein in their glutes. It's like, what the hell? Whereas if you're natural, you should have long bulks. Okay, stretch that shit out as much as you can. Because if you're going like 3 weeks bulk, 3 weeks cut, 3 weeks bulk, 3 weeks cut, if you're a natural, that's a very good way to go nowhere. Number 20, cardio. You do see enhanced lifters, especially before a show, doing tremendous amounts of cardio, like 2 or 3 hours of fairly hard cardio per day. Because again, all that energy required to mobilize and all that excess cortisol doesn't really impact them negatively, and they're not really at risk for muscle loss. If you're a natural and you're doing that, you're going to look really, really stringy. You're going to look like a distance runner who does some curls. Maybe. And so if you're a natural, walk. Just walk. Low to very low, moderate, steady state cardio, which is actually going to reduce your cortisol instead of jack it up. And so just focus on the diet, keep cardio to a very minimal/manageable level, and don't get crazy because you're playing a different game. Now, it's worth noting that this video is primarily based on hypertrophy, bodybuilding, size, muscle growth, etc. I think if you're a powerlifter, it doesn't change that much. It'll change your rate of progression, obviously, but then again, it also increases your risk of injury, so you sort of have to slow down your progression intentionally. But other than that, because you're chasing strength, you're not going to get that much out of this pump style of training, and therefore it doesn't change your entire program all that much. And personally, years 2, 3, and 4 of my training, I fell into a lot of these traps because I was following a lot of enhanced lifters. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was eating way too much protein, like 250, 300 grams per day, eating way too frequently, again, 6, 7, 8 times per day, because that's just what I saw the biggest people doing, and obviously the bigger someone is, the more they know what they're talking about. Training with way too high of reps, way too much volume, not focusing on progression, focusing too much on the pump, mind-muscle connection, feeling the contraction, feeling the burn, all these sensations that really don't matter if you are natural. And I saw some results. It's not like I didn't see any results, but I can say with absolute certainty they weren't nearly as good as they could have been. Finally, this isn't a moral issue in my opinion. If you want to take steroids, performance-enhancing drugs, that's your choice. As long as you don't lie about it to sell bullshit programs or to market shitty supplements. If you're not doing that, and you're like somewhat open about it, or at least not actively lying about it, I don't see this as really an issue at all. Anyway, let me know if you agree or disagree. Leave a comment down below. It helps to slap around that algo. Definitely grab a copy of my book if you've suffered through this entire video. It's written for naturals, but it'll work for everyone. Like, share, subscribe, slap around that notification bell as well, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.